guys, I'm down by the cathedral. I spotted this swan's nest about 2.5 weeks ago, and she's laid her eggs at this stage. Probably 7 or 8 eggs, maybe more, maybe as many as 10, or as few as 4 or 5, but probably 7 or 8. And it took her 5 or 6 days to lay the eggs. In that period, her mate, the cob, the male, she's the pen. The male would have exchanged duties with her, keeping the eggs warm while she went to feed. She's been fattening herself up all spring for this nesting period, and once she's laid the eggs, she exclusively sits on the nest. You can see the nest is fairly untidy. It's not exactly house proud. It's in the middle of a little swamp area here by the University Slipway there, where the old boat club was, and just up here is the Poor Clares convent. They've been there since the early 16th century, and beside the cathedral, you can just see it through the trees there. So behind here is Millennium Park, and Millennium Park is a playground and of course a skate park and whatever. It's a lovely area here, but the swans have chosen this spot because it's quite safe. The water is moving very slowly, if at all, and there's no predators big enough along here that would do them any damage. They're away from dogs and cats and whatever. So anyway, as I said to you, she's exclusively sitting on the eggs now, and she stays sitting on them for between 35 and 42 days. So 5 to 6 weeks, literally, of constantly sitting on the nest. She won't feed, she won't leave the nest. The cob in the meantime is doing patrol duty around here. I guess he might bring her some food, but generally they don't. It's they've fattened themselves up enough to last that whole period. Last year, 2 years ago, we had a very, very hot period in May, and one of the nests here was abandoned because I guess the pen got sick, or maybe the eggs overheated and didn't hatch. But generally speaking, of the 7 eggs or so that she'll have, you'll probably get 1 or 2 that are infertile, and the rest will hatch out as cygnets in 5 to 6 weeks. And those cygnets, they'll all be born within, believe it or not, within 24 to 48 hours. And again, within that 48-hour period, she and the cob, who's around here somewhere, will take the cygnets down along, probably down this way where it's nice and calm, and they'll revisit the nest only a couple of times. Generally speaking, the little cygnets will sleep beside them on the ground, on a lawn or whatever it would be, or sometimes they'll actually shelter under the mother's wings. You'll see them hopping up on her back. It's amazing to see when you see a swan arriving in, and then all these little guys jump off the back like they've hitched a ride. So the pen is the female, the cob is the male, the cygnet is the baby, and they'll be born little brown, grey. They look like goslings more than anything else, but they're swans, and they'll stay brown and go sort of a greyer brown colour as they grow very rapidly, and by a year's time they'll be starting to get their white plumage, maybe a year and a half. At that stage, of course, the parents have already started their second nest and their new family, and would have shunted the young ones away. Mortality of the cygnets is very high. There was a photograph of a heron. We all love herons. Well, herons love cygnets, and they eat them whole. Seagulls love cygnets. Mink, otters, and indeed domestic animals, foxes and, or rather, dogs and cats. They take them if they can. So if you have animals like that, keep them under control when you're near a swan's nest. The male will be protective, and male swans are ferocious if they come at you. So don't go at them, don't let the kids near them. More for the safety of the cygnets than yourselves. So that's the swan's nest at the cathedral. I hope you're enjoying it. Many of you will have grown up in Galway, looked into the salmon weir at the salmon down the river below, gone to the university just behind us here, gone to the cathedral to mass behind me here, or indeed visited the Poor Clares for some reason. The Bish School is just there, St. Pat's further over, and then of course the Jazz and all the other schools, the girls' schools, the convents, all scattered around here. So you'll all have seen the swans nesting when you were younger, when you lived in Galway, perhaps if you're not living right here now. It's still continuing. Usually we have 2 or 3 pairs of swans who nest. I've only seen one nest so far in the city centre. The usual nesting spot over by Mill Street has no nest on it this year, don't know why. And the swans themselves, we've a swan colony. We all know about that colony down at the Claddagh, where up to 100 swans live there. Swans are funny. When they're a year old, they're told to buzz off by their parents. We try that as humans, doesn't always work. And the young swans, the year-old, join the swan colony, and they might stay 4 or 5 years there before they eventually pair off and mate with another swan. The mates, the swans will mate. They may even have a honeymoon period of a year before they mate, and then they stay together for life. And if either of the 2 dies, the cob or the pen, within a year they'll have found another mate if they're young enough. So they won't actually breed till they're probably 5 years of age, and they'll live to be over 20 if they have no health issues. So amazing. Our fairy tales, the children of Lyr, we all grew up with that, about the swans, the children who were turned into swans and wandered Ireland, moving every 400 years. So we're very attached to our swans. They are a protected species, as they are all around Britain. In Britain, they're the protectorate of the Queen or the royals. In Ireland, we just respect them because they're our ancestors, if you want to call it that. So there you are, the swans at the Claddagh. I'm Brian Nolan. I hope you're enjoying Galway Memories page. Alan Fahey, who founded it, and Dick Byrne, who did a lot of writing for us, and all the others who send in photographs. If you have photographs you want to put them up, do put them on. Sorry, I thought there was a swan going to fly past us there. I thought it might be the male coming to tell me to buzz off that the time is up. So she's cleaning her feathers and whatever else would be. Like I say, she'll sit here for about 5 weeks without moving, continuously minding the nest. The cob will come and go, will protect her from any animals that might come nearby. So I'll come back here another 2 weeks maybe, we'll have, or 3, we'll have cygnets. I'll try and come back here between now and then, see how she's getting on, and if you have any questions, put them on the comments below. And as I said, if you have any photographs of old Galway, of your time here as a kid, your time here as a visitor or whatever, send them in. We'd be delighted to put them up, and if you give me some background, I'll write a story about it, or about your friends or family or whatever it be. Okay, signing off, Brian Nolan, Galway Memories, Galway Walks, walking towards the Galway, and all the rest of it. Listen, it's lovely. It's bloody COVID, we're fed up with it, but things like this make it a bit more bearable. That's the university behind there, in the distance. That was the old boat slip for the 4s and 8s for the rowing club. There's your cathedral. That's the Poor Clares over there. behind that wall. They have a bell on that church there, and they only ring the bell when they have no food, or so the story goes. And hopefully they don't run out of food ever. But in the old days, I suppose that was important because they were in enclosed order and they were locked in. Down there is the old Perce's distillery, the whiskey distillery that kept half of Galway working and the other half inebriated back in the 19th century. It was closed by 1904, 1905. This was the mill race for that mill building you see down there. And it employed hundreds of people and was a very important distillery, supplying whiskey to the Houses of Parliament. Gorgeous reflections here today. That was the old men's club. And before that, I'm sure somebody will correct me on this, but that was the infirmary before they built the regional hospital. So that was the original infirmary for Galway, a fever hospital. And of course, it was mentioned in James Joyce's story, The Dead, because that's where Nora Barnacle's boyfriend, James Joyce's wife, died. He had consumption and he died in that little infirmary there. So yeah, nowadays it's a Centre for Women's Rights, part of the university. An important building, lovely building. The new campus goes that way, all up along the Corrib for nearly half a mile. Beautiful campus. Ordinarily there would be 25,000 students there, but of course with COVID it's half empty, number one, and everyone doing their courses by distance learning and so on. So please God, we'll be back in action. I'll be doing walking tours next year, and you'll be here visiting, and I'll see you all then. So leave you with the Swan.